was a drive way back. It might be. It could be. It is. Holy cow. Welcome to another broadcast of Bricks Behind the Ivy.
Hey, Cub fans, welcome to another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy. Thank you so much to our awesome sponsors, Wrigleyville Sports, the best sports store in Wrigleyville, and Yagi Road Roasting Company, based in Valparaiso, Indiana, serving cups of coffee just as special as the moments you drink them in. Here's your host, Jeff Candid Cubs Rogowskis and Pat Erickson. Hey, Brickheads! Welcome to another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy, the podcast built brick by brick for Cub fans by Cub fans. I am always your host, Jeff Candid Cubs Rogowskis, lifelong Northsider with blue blood in my veins, and today I am joined by co-host extraordinaire, Harry Carey impersonator number one in the world, Mr. Pat Erickson. Pat, how are you doing tonight?
What's up, buddy? Well, I wish I was doing a little bit better than our Cubbies down in Motor City, but green jacket, gold jacket, it's all right. But no, doing real good. Looking forward to the boys coming back home. They had a little bit of a rough go at it in Detroit, but I mean, Detroit's on fire right now. We're still looking good. We're still in first place. So, as Harry used to say, hope springs eternal. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's not. It wasn't the worst, trip to Detroit. Yeah. Obviously, we're 6 games into this road trip, and that amassed all the games this week. Cubs are 3-3, which is nothing to shake a stick at. They still have the best road record in all of baseball, which is a good thing to have. You can win pretty much anywhere. But, yeah, I think it would have been nice to take 2 out of 3. And, yeah, that Friday game had some sloppy base running. And today, I just feel like the wind was taken out of the sails by just a very eager to toss umpire. And I feel like before we get into today's main topic, let's hit on that really quickly.
Oh, dear Lord, I loved it so I watched a little bit of earlier the post game stuff, and Nico's quote was great. He said, "It's not very often that I can look at the media and say exactly what I told the umpire, but what I said was, you're really having a bad day today." That's all he said. Probably the same thing as your kids would say to you. I know my kids would say to me. That's all he said, and he got the heave-ho. And this up today, I don't know if they had Ray Charles behind the plate, but my God, it was terrible.
Yeah, I know. It was. I was listening to the game on the radio. I was doing the classic suburban dad thing. I had the Cub game on the radio, and I was cutting my lawn, which is a sentence almost as old as I am. And that was so I heard the game and was listening to Ron Coomer and Pat Hughes, and yeah, they were just, Ron Coomer was pretty steamed. And when Counsell got tossed, I mean, first of all, just listening on the radio, of all the players on this squad that is probably going to turn around and say next to nothing, Nico Hoerner is probably on the top of that list. And second of all, how quick he was tossed. And obviously now knowing the audio, just you can't do that. You just can't in a game. I understand this isn't a big game, but it is a fun game that's probably getting a lot more eyes than you think. It was sold out, the first 3 sellouts beyond opening day for Detroit this weekend. Raucous crowd, Cub fans, Tigers fans, and the guy who's leading the team and batting average runners in scoring position gets up with runners in scoring position. You call a ball that's about hits his knee, strike 3, and he turns around and says one thing, no cursing, because it's Nico Hoerner, for Christ's sake, and you toss him. Like one sentence, and you toss him.
I think
he let Craig Counsell get his money's worth. He went up there. He was yelling. He was yelling at him for a good 5 minutes before he got tossed, which I was like, well, okay, so no quick trigger for the manager who's going bananas, but for Nico Hoerner, turns around and is like, you're having a bad day.
And it was almost like, and maybe I'm wrong with this, but it's almost like the ump gave the quick heave-ho to Nico, and then when Counsell came out, it's almost like the ump said to himself, maybe I should have waited a little bit, so I'm going to let Craig get his money's worth, and that's what ended up happening. But, that was just an absolute joke. I don't think robotic umpires is going to be the answer to all this, but my God, this ump crew all season long, for any game, not just our Cubbies, but any major league game has just been god awful. And they got to fix this.
Yeah, I generally don't sit on the side of the manager show and going out there and yelling at the because I feel like, at the end of the day, in the long aggregate, similar to the marathon of a season, umpires are going to remember the guys that really got on them. And if you're gonna do that, I understand like defending your players and everybody's thought process with that. But I just don't land there because I think Craig Counsell is playing the long game of like they're human beings, they make mistakes. Yep. Craig Counsell get as pissed off as he did today, which was so justified. It just so frustrating because it was a very good series, very good baseball played by both teams, and I feel like this game today was, and I really don't like the line here, was dictated by the umpires because they just took all of the wind out of that inning. Like the team just did not seem to. They put some stuff together after that, but it just wasn't the same. And just a very frustrating game. And they've got three more, which is turning into a struggling. Philadelphia Phillies team. They've lost a bunch of games. Right? And then Bryce Harper just got put on the injured list with a sore right wrist. So, they took 2 or 3 at Wrigley earlier in the year. And nobody's announced starters for this series, so we don't know who's pitching. Jesus Luzardo, who when he faced the Cubs last time was leading the circuit in ERA, and now he's been lit up like a Christmas tree. Oh, yeah. His last few starts, he has not looked very solid. It'll be very interesting to see, who's pitching in this series, first of all. And second of all, it'd be nice for the Cubs to kind of take a shorter-handed and struggling Phillies team and, just beat up on them a little bit before coming home. But, I think it's a good time to name before we get into our main topic of hand, our pitcher and hitter of the week, which is always brought to you by Wrigleyville Sports, the best sports store in all of Wrigleyville, adjacent to the ballpark, open since 1990. Go get your best Cubs dress stuff there. Of course, home of the custom jersey. And I would be remiss if we don't mention our contest right now. Yes. If you have not been paying attention, we launched a contest with Wrigleyville Sports last week, in which we are giving away a number of things. The big prize being a custom Cubs jersey, which I don't have to tell anyone who's listening to this podcast how much that will run you. Those are very expensive. A really nice prize that we've got, and on top of that, I've got some folks that have donated Cub tickets as well. So we'll have one winner getting a custom jersey, one winner getting Cub tickets, and then 10 other winners will get Bricks Behind the Ivy t-shirts. So here's how you enter. Go to Instagram. That's one of the ways you can go, and comment under the post and tag a friend and use hashtag Brickhead. That's one way. Number 2, go to Apple Podcasts, write a 5-star review for the podcast. It has to be a written review so I see it, and put hashtag Brickhead plus your email so I can know it's you and contact you if you win there. If you're on Spotify, leave a 5-star review, screenshot it, and tag BBTI in that. And then go to YouTube, subscribe, and under any video on the channel, put hashtag Brickhead or hashtag Bleacher Bunch. And notice that I said it's one comment per video counts as an entry, but there are hundreds of videos on our channel, so that could be hundreds of entries. If you take the time, go and just comment under the videos and put hashtag Brickhead. So easy.
Deep dive into the library. Heck yeah.
On Twitter, all you have to do is retweet the post that has these rules on it. It's another entry. So you can enter so many different ways. We're giving this thing away live on our show on June 30th. That's a Monday when our show usually comes out. We'll pick a winner on that recording. You'll have to be listening to hear if you won. And you could win 12 prizes we're giving out. 2 really awesome ones and 10, I think, pretty significantly cool ones. That's my opinion. And if you're watching the video, you can take a look at these prizes right now and, just get really excited about it. But, anywho, pitcher and player of the week. Do you want to do the pitcher or do you want to do the player of the week?
I can definitely do the old player of the week if you so choose, my good man.
All right, start us off.
All right, well, did a little bit of it here. Took a look at some things. I think collectively as a team, minus the little bit of struggles we had in old Motor City, have been doing good, but I have got to give the nod right now for not only his contribution behind the plate, or at the plate, excuse me, but also what he is doing in the field. And I got to go with PCA. And I know that's probably a very, very, very very common vote. But I mean, if you look at him right now, he's third on the team in batting average, 277. He's first on the team in homers. He's second on the team. The guy's got 21 stolen bases already. Obviously leads the team, but we're staring down the barrel of June 8th, and he's already got 21 swipe bags. Now, that's going in with the philosophy that Council has been doing thus far this year, where to get on, get around, and get in. And he is doing a lot of stealing the bases. But PCA, and not only just that, but seeing what he has been doing out there in center, making some huge catches in some crucial situations, especially when they were out in Cincinnati. I mean, it's been unbelievable, and I think he has been the catalyst thus far. Seeing the old stepbrothers bromance between him and Seiya has been hilarious to watch. But I mean, I think it's trickling down to all the guys, and I think that he's been a big catalyst. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the PCA.
Yeah, it's a good pick, and it continues to be just one of the better players and better stories of the 2025 Cubs. As he kind of lifts this entire group up, similar to Kyle Tucker. And I think that was the big worry I had going into this season was Kyle Tucker's great, but when we got rid of Cody Bellinger, like I wanted Cody Bellinger and I thought the pair of them and. Excuse me, here we go. PCA has kind of stepped right into that, 23 years old, and has taken that mantle as the and. He's the and player, and it's been really nice to see. And he's our hitter of the week. And I'll take the pitcher of the week. This one was a toss-up because one got the win and one didn't. And I was looking at the two pitchers that performed this week, but I'm going to give it to Mr. Benjamin Brown. He went toe-to-toe with Tariq Skubal and really just looked the part. He looked just as good as Skubal did in that game. 7 innings pitched, only 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 7 Ks. The guy, since he had his little opener experiment with Drew Pomeranz, seems to have found another level of aggression that he's taking at his hitters and really has turned a corner because he had 2 real stinkers of a start and had been having a hard time most of the season, especially at Wrigley, starting games and getting rolling. And I don't know if it was extra adrenaline where the fastball was kind of leaking in the zone and not going where he wanted. But yeah, Ben Brown, really just a nice performance on Apple TV, of all things, on Friday versus Tariq Skubal. And those are our pitchers and hitters of the week. If you've got someone else that's your pitcher hitter of the week, make sure you leave a note in the comments. Use hashtag Brickhead to enter our contest, and let us know who your pitchers and hitters of the week are. So, Pat, I had messaged you earlier this week, and I'm actually weirdly excited about this because we're going into this blind. I don't know who you picked. And you don't know who I picked. So, we could have some, really just, genuine moments of excitement in which we've picked the same player. But there was a thing going around. The Athletic had an article picking the Cubs quarter-century team. And first of all, I was immediately sad that the quarter-century team was enough of a sample size of, my prominent Cub fandom years, given my age, that I did not realize that we could sit and talk about a 25-year squad and I would remember most of the players. And that made me ultimately a little sad.
You know how I feel about 84.
But I was still a twinkle in someone's eye in 84. So, but yeah, I read this article, thought it was really cool just to kind of think about, this has been one of the more successful runs of Cubs baseball the last 25 years, several playoff berths, not the same, lovable losers of, the 90s and even the early 80s in which you can count on one hand. We got a championship in there, and I think there's some interesting conversations depending on when you look at the players. And, I took an approach that I did not run by you, where I took not only just players, I took individual seasons of the player as part of my team. So I could have the same player as you, but I'm taking a very specifically productive season of that player in the last 25 years.
So, I like it. All right.
So I'm gonna let you start off. We're gonna start with
Okay.
the offensive side of the ball, and
Okay.
generally I like to try to go around the horn in the the 1, 2, 3, how the field is numbered. But we're gonna start with first base. Pat, of
Okay.
your 25-year team, who is your first baseman?
This was okay. I had it going on between Derek Lee and Rizzo. And
Yeah,
looking at some stuff, and excuse me if I scanned my notes, but because memory. But anyway, Derek Lee was unbelievable for this team. I mean, he outslashed Rizzo. He had a 298 career batting average with the Cubs, won the batting title in '05, nearly got the Triple Crown. Okay. Great ball player, great catalyst. Again, kind of like what I talked before about PCA being a leader on the field and off the field, was one of the big reasons why I decided to pick with Rizzo. Now, he played more years with the Cubs than Derek Lee did. Okay. So he had more homers, more RBIs. He played in 10 playoff series compared to Lee's 2. Okay. And let's talk about it when it absolutely counted. Now, that was a huge acquisition that the guys, Theo and those guys had way back when, snagging him. But look what he did when it mattered most. He hit 320 with a 1.010 OPS in the 2016 National League Championship Series and he hit 360 with almost a 1.1 OPS in the World Series. That's great on the field. If you look at what he did off the field, if you look at what he did as far as the Seattle Mariner game when he got on top of the tarp, the old Reynolds wrap tarp, and he made that unbelievable catch for that one. Looking what he's done, and I've even went kind of like how you did a deep dive going into individual seasons. I also did a deep dive for some of these guys into what they even do off the field with Rizzo's foundation. The fact that he's not even playing Major League Baseball and he's still doing what he's doing, it matters so much. And he was clearly the leader of that team going into, I would say, probably starting in about 2013-ish, 14. Was still with the ball club. He kind of guided him in his career. But look at what Rizzo did. That's who I ended up picking for my first baseman. Jeff, who do you got, my man?
yeah. It's funny actually that we're starting here because I think it's super fitting. On the reason I looked at individual seasons was this position because I was having a hard time picking between Derek Lee and Anthony Rizzo, and I kind of landed on the exact same logic that you had. I mean, one was the clear cut captain of the World Series squad and that core. And maybe clear cut isn't the correct word. David Ross and John Lester
No.
and that veteran leadership really, prop. But he was the heart and soul. I think the face, all the audio bits that I love from Game 7 about him being a glass case of emotion and
That's
just the
case of emotion.
the fun energy he brought. And
Yeah.
yeah, this is exactly why I looked at individual seasons because
Yeah.
I couldn't pick one season between if you're looking at the amassed numbers, it was just a very different situation. They were very similar in total WAR in that period, but one had done it very differently. So I went with the specific season of 2005 Derek Lee, which there's a
Great
recent
pick.
TikTok and short reel that I released. Derek Lee was actually drafted by the Padres, which I didn't know. I've been going through my old baseball cards and organizing them into a box and like organize my team and all this stuff because I'm crazy and that's what I wanted to do. So I started going through my cards. I found this Derek Lee rookie card of him in a Padre uniform. I was like, what'd be fun is to like take pictures of some of these cards of Cubs in random uniforms and educate people like, hey, they played on another team. They're not just Cubs because. But yeah, he was a Padre. He was drafted by the Padres. Ended up on the Marlins. Had some really nice years with the Marlins, including that '03 World Series team. And then he got traded to the Cubs for Hee-Seop Choi, who was, one of
Oh,
the more
wow.
like well thought of, prospects at the time. But yeah, Derek
Yep.
Lee in 2005 was ungodly good, just so
Yeah.
so good
Oh,
in an era of strikeouts and home runs and
yeah.
like way more home runs. This guy, yeah, almost won the Triple Crown. He had a 335 batting average. He stole 15 bases. He only grounded into 12 double plays the whole season. He had
Unreal.
85 walks, 120 runs. runs, 46 home runs, 50 doubles, just an absolutely insane season. He just missed the 200 hit mark. He had 199 hits on the season.
Yep.
Just one of the single great seasons of this 25 years. One of the best seasons put
Hands
together. It's mind blowing how good this guy was that one year. And it's not he put together a 7 WAR in 2005, and that's
unheard of.
Yeah, that is elite level numbers. So he would be the 2005 Derek Lee would be my first baseman. So moving to second base, who do you have as your second baseman?
Well, it was kind of tough. I've been doing a deep dive as far as all the second basemen. First of all, God, I can't believe how many we had for this time frame. I really got to go with who our second baseman is now, and Nico Horner. I mean, he grew up with the team, drafted by the team, etc. Gold Glove winner in 23, debuted in 2019, and he's been a defense an anchor for the defense we've got up the middle, no matter who they put at shortstop. Now, luckily, he's got Dansby over there, so it's a little bit more solidified. But he has just been unbelievable. 548 career games. I looked this up the other day. To date, he's hitting 278 with 99 doubles, 102 steals, and 289 runs, while being one of the hardest hitters to strike out in the major leagues. His strikeout to walk ratio is way down. I'm also a little personal bias because he said he learned the craft from, in my opinion, and I know all those people that love Ernie Banks are probably going to give me wonderful comments, but the greatest Cub of all time, Ryan Sandberg, he said he listened. He is even he did during the series this past weekend. I mean, it's so hard to get him to strike out, to swing at a bad pitch. He's fouling them off time and time again. He's making every pitcher work for it. So that's who I ended up picking, was good old Nico, and a hell of a guy. My son and I have met him a few times. Really nice to the fans, etc. So that's who I had. Jeff, who's your guy?
Yeah, for Nico Horner is in the 99th percentile in whiff rate and strikeout rate in Major League Baseball right now, at 10.7% whiff rate, which is bananas. Bananas is my word right now. I've been really hitting the bananas word a little too hard, but exactly. I mean, it's the Gwen Stefani deep inside that is trying to come out. But for second base, I cheated. I looked it up, and he did play second base a little bit more, and he almost won the MVP that year over Christian Yelich. It was pretty close until he kind of cooled off towards it. But I'm taking 2018 Javier Baez, and that is but he produced more offensively. When I construct a team, I do, and my buddy, if he does listen to this, is going to attest to this. I like speed and defense, especially up the middle, and I feel like run prevention is a huge part of the game, and I really wanted Nico Horner here for the glove. But one of the best defensive WAR seasons at second base for this Cubs team in the last 25 years was Javier Baez, and it was slightly lower than 2023 version of Nico Horner, which was 12.8 defensive WAR, but the bat was absurd for Javier. He had 111 RBIs that year, 34 home runs. This is the guy that I think when we were talking about an extension and keeping Javi, and I think there's a part of me that truly believes that if he never leaves the Cubs, he doesn't have the struggle years that he had in Detroit. I think he really wanted to stay here. It's been discussed, like the contract that was on the table was tabled once the pandemic season started, never really rekindled. The value had changed significantly after the pandemic season. I think there was some motivation, but then I think things had shifted in which they kind of wanted to just pull the plug from this group, this core, and it ended up, it's worked out sort of for the Cubs. It'd be interesting, to think of this team not to discredit how Matt Shaw has played of late, but to think of Javier Baez as our third baseman, which was always kind of how I thought he would age. He would be a pretty solid third baseman. And then having Dansby at short. But do we have Dansby if we sign Javier? Probably not because of contract size and stuff. So not revision, but yeah, that 2018 Javier Baez, that would be my second baseman. Again, I cheated a little bit with looking at it. And that was still the years of, Addison Russell, and that they were really trying to make that work. And obviously, Addison Russell never turned out to be what he was. He had some off the field issues that, are extremely unfortunate, and, reasons that maybe he shouldn't really be a part of some of these discussions, similar to the same reasons I don't talk about Trevor Bauer. We're not going down the Trevor Bauer path tonight, but Javier Baez, my quarter century team second baseman. So
good pick.
Let's hop over to shortstop, which is, if Javier Baez is my second baseman, then who's my shortstop? Well, you can't have your shortstop and your second baseman be the same player, no matter how many times I thought about doing that, just to really piss off the comments, because 2019 Javier Baez, who was a full-time shortstop, was quite good. But I'm going to go with, just on the defense alone, they're really slow. I'm going to take 2023 Dansby Swanson. I'm not going to sit here and act like it was the greatest offensive season or if this is the greatest pick. But if you look at the last 25 years of shortstops, there is not a guy besides Javier Baez, who's my second baseman currently, that is as steady and as just a wizard with the glove as at shortstop as Dansby Swanson. There is not a more boring player to watch at shortstop, and boring in the positive way, than Dansby Swanson. He does everything to the T. He's a fun player to watch play the field. But if you take a small kid to the ballpark who wants to play shortstop, you point at him, you say, do everything that guy does. He does not make a fundamental error at that position, really, ever. And in 2023, he was pretty solid. He had 244, 328, 416 slug. He had 22 home runs and 80 RBIs. I take that. But defensively, he was worth 20.7 WAR that year. That's why the floor, it's never been about Dansby's bat. The bat's always been a bonus, similar to how we perceived PCA early on. I want that 20.7 Gold Glove 2023 Dansby Swanson anchoring the middle of my infield. I would pay really good money to watch him and 2018 Javier Baez turn double plays. That would have been something to see.
That would be awesome.
Who's your shortstop?
Well, I almost went with Javi. And mostly for his fielding. Yeah, he was awesome, at the plate, especially in 2016, whatever. And I thought about, is it too soon to pick him? But I said, the heck with it. So for the podcast tonight, I had to don the old Georgia t-shirt for our boy Dansby, and I had to go with Dansby Swanson. I know it's early. I know he's only been here for a couple of years. And I know that a lot of Cub Nation is hoping, hey, are we going to get the Dansby Swanson that played down in Atlanta that finally come to fruition here in Chicago? Cub Nation, right now, what you're seeing is the Dansby Swanson that we paid for. I got a lot of family that lives down in Atlanta, diehard Braves fans, goes to Braves games all the time. And when I was just down in Hilton Head, when I scared everybody at Bricks Behind the Ivy with the video of me topless, sorry about that, and sorry about your eyes. But I talked to them about Dansby, and everybody, all my family down there was telling me the same exact thing. I've been watching the Cubs. I've been watching Dansby, and this is the Dansby you paid for. And I've been seeing both at the plate. He's getting patient. It very well could have been injury plagued last year, and that's why his hitting was a little bit subpar. His fielding was still fine. But, you had all of those things happen. But I think this year we're finally getting what we paid for, and that's what I got to say. Go Dogs, and it got to go with Dansby.
Yeah, it's such an easy pick. Not that it sounds insulting of all the nice things you said about Dansby there, but it's such a safe pick, and what he is, and I'd like to see 100%. Him heat up a little bit here because I'd really want him to selfishly, and you know, for himself, like to go home for the All-Star game, to play the All-Star, because the All-Star game's in Atlanta. It just would be really cool to see him starting shortstop at Truist Park, where around he grew up, and you know, coming home in his Cubs uniform, because now they're wearing their uniforms. He'll be in a Cubs uniform on that field. I don't know. I feel like that'd be something. And now he's gonna be a dad. There's just a really special thing there. I want whoever's writing the script, like let Dansby heat up so that we can make this happen, because he's.
I think it's coming, folks. I really, really do. That was the other thing my family told me down there is this is how he was in Atlanta every year, is when that Southern heat started cranking up, so did his bat. And that's what I'm hoping to God it's going to happen at the old Federal.
Well, last year he had a core injury and hit 390 slugging with a 702 OPS. Like, I can't do that fully healthy, like in this league. So,
God, no.
and like he's
it would hurt me to get the mail, let alone play
his
baseball.
career slash line is 251, 319, 414, and that's an OPS of 733. And with the Cubs in 2023, 744. Last year with a core injury, 702. It's starting to heat up. The ball's going to travel up more. He's a 715 OPS right now, plus giving stellar defense. Like that just, it's worth every penny of that contract. I have no issues with Sir Lieutenant Dansby. I am a Dansby fansby until his last Dansby. That is put it on a damn t-shirt.
And here's a little side note, and this is another reason why I love the guy. And my friends that are out there, you're probably going to agree with me wholeheartedly. When he got married to Mallory, and they had their reception, and you know how a lot of people get food tonight? The man brought in Waffle House. Now, if you can get a little southern covered and chunked at 12 o'clock during your wedding reception, it doesn't get any better than this.
No, agreed. So I think that puts a little icing on the cake there, shortstop. Third base. I think this was the easiest position to fill for a singular season. His time as the Cubs. It's not easy. I do want to kind of have a secondary conversation of one of the more, forgotten's not the correct word, but like he's just not discussed in the way that I feel like he should be discussed as a Cub. But my third baseman, let's not bury the lead. 2016 Chris Bryant, he won the MVP, and 2017 Chris Bryant was almost better than 2016 Chris Bryant. People, that I don't want to sound like the commander in chief, but people don't talk about this. But his walk rate in 2016 to 2017 went up 4%. His strikeout rate went down 3%, and his on-base percentage went up, and he just had a slight dip in slugging. Like, he was almost a better player in 2017, where he wasn't getting MVP votes, than the year he won the MVP in 2016. That's bananas. But man, it sucks to see like the health issues and stuff he has now, because this guy is one of those that he came up, he was the heir apparent to all of our hearts, and just did nothing but produce Rookie of the Year, MVP, like just the hero we all needed. And man, the back half of his career and that Colorado contract is going to go down as a laugher, because he just can't stay healthy, and it sucks.
He can't. You know what? And you know what? We can even make this position short and sweet, because I went for the same reason. I mean, how many awards did the guy win? He's got Rookie of the Year, MVP, etc. Now, the other thing, though, that in my opinion was that you haven't really heard about him too much until he recently got elected to the Cubs Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Ramos.
Is Ramirez.
It's so hard to talk about this position and not mention him. But it's only because Chris Bryant exists that he just feels so underappreciated. Like, Robert Ramirez had some freaking monster seasons for the Cubs.
Oh, hands down.
I remember in my brain, in my mind's mind, that this guy was a strikeout machine for some reason. And the guy barely ever got the 15%. Like, he was 11% strikeout rate in 2007, 14 in 2008, 10 in 2004. His worst season on the Cubs strikeout-wise was 2010 at 17%. That's elite level in this version of the game. The guy was a monster at the plate. Now
let me ask you this question. 2016, and thank God it did. But 2016 doesn't happen. Would you pick Ramirez over Bryant? Cubs don't win the World Series in 16.
I don't think it changes the overall numbers for me.
Okay, very good. Very
I think
good.
it really.
Okay.
And honestly, Aramis Ramirez was tough to watch defensively. Remember very
good
vividly him dropping a pop up and losing a game versus Atlanta. Can't tell you the year, but I can tell you that happened. I can tell you it was versus Atlanta, and I was just red hot mad. I couldn't believe.
And I bet you Ron Santo was going, no!
Yeah. Exactly. Just an absolute disaster of a defender. Which, if you look at just defensive WAR on Fangraphs, the four worst defensive years at third base by a Cub in that 25 years. 3 of them belong to Aramis Ramirez. Number 1 to 2022 Sir Patrick Wisdom as the worst defender at the yeah, man, I liked watching that guy hit home runs, but watching him play third base was also a struggle. Which, not a struggle would be moving on to the outfield. And I don't think we necessarily need to position lock here as left center, or unless you've position locked. But who?
I did, but you could just do it as
okay.
a
Let's position lock. I'm cool with position locking. I think it makes it easier. So, who would your starting left fielder be?
Well, I know in the article, I believe it was in the article, or maybe it was a rebuttal, but somebody was putting Ian Happ up there, and I'm like, yeah, Happ's good, but stick to maybe drinking some of his Connect Roasters coffee. Well, because it's second best Yagi Road. But in any event, I don't see it. The one that I picked, and it hurt me to pick it because I remember him and literally television, but I went with Soriano, just because. He hit 181 homers at a Cub at .812 OPS, where Haps is only .788. Yeah, he did struggle in his playoff appearances, but he was on fire when it needed most. Now, the one thing that I remember that used to drive me absolutely insane is every time he was down 0-2, I go, let's see, low and outside. That's why. But I did have Moises Alou as a close second for that one. I'm not going to bring up the certain fan that was in left field in 03. It kind of tangled with Alou.
All right, so box moment. It's not the fan's fault. He just had the tallest hand. Like this is that's
But yeah, so that's what I went with. I went with Soriano just because of what he did at the plate. He actually was pretty fast out there in left field. Now, that's not to say that Happ eventually could be up there in that conversation. I think he is, but as of right now, and this is just my opinion, I don't think he is yet. What about you, Jeff?
So I did go with Alou, specifically 2004 Alou, which it was fun looking back at this because I do remember 2004 was one of the weirdest seasons for me. I remember as clear as day at the end of the season, they kind of just. They whimpered out. They didn't really fall apart. They just never had control. They never had the division. They still had a really good record. They had a bunch of good players that had good seasons, and it just wasn't a playoff year. I remember WGN put this highlight package together of like some of their toughest losses and a season review, which they used to do at the end of the season. I used to look forward to it. It used to be one of my favorite things, and it was set to Finger 11's One Thing. And it was like, which is kind of a tragic song. And watching this season, I remember sitting there just like crying. I just absolutely devastated about 2004. Just because like 2003, it was one of those moments where I felt like it was my first time respecting how challenging it was to get where they were in 2003 and how hard it was going to get back to being that close. And I was young. I was a sophomore in high school, and that was the moment for me where I feel like I grew up with baseball. Where it was, man, the 2003 is special because they went far. But holy cow, is it going to be really hard to do that again and to get there and to have all those feelings and stuff again. But 2004, Moises Alou, 10% walk rate, 11% K rate. 361, 557 slugging, 39 bombs, 106 RBIs. That is, and he was, pretty solid defensively, 11.4 defensive WAR. So not a slouch out there in left field. But yeah, that's really, I really have this nice thing going with, pretty solid defense. My lineup is going to be Derek Lee, Chris Bryant, and Moises Alou as the guys that don't strike out and get on base, and Javi just swing as hard as he can, which is, and then Dansby doesn't have to do anything but look pretty and field ground balls. So I'm really liking how my team's shaping up. So
and we all know who the cleanup hitter is going to end up being, and I believe he played in right field. I'm not saying, I'm just.
And we can discuss his God-given talent, or whatever talent he found in the end of a needle. But before we get to right field and the most obvious pick in this draft, let's go to center field. Do you have a center fielder, and who is it?
I do. I do think that PCA is eventually going to get there if he keeps on this tier. And as a side note, I hate to be a Mets fan. Basically, you gave away him for nothing, and look what happened. But in any event, I think it's too soon for him. I think he'll be there, but I actually went with Dexter Fowler on this.
Interesting.
I went for his bat. I went with his bat. I went with his leadership. I mean, we all have heard the story time and time again about the rain delay and everything else. But the only ones, and I looked this up, the only players to have a WAR of even 3.0 or better over a in center field, Fowler, he had a 4.0 in 2016, and here's in the Wayback Machine, Marlon Byrd with a 3.7 in 2010.
Damn.
And, the other one too was Corey Patterson at 3.0 in 2004. He's had a combined WAR of 6.3 over the 2 years, better than anybody else in that span. And he was the only All-Stars in that span were Dexter in 26, and then in 16, and Bird in 2010. So I did it for his hitting. I did it for the WAR. I did it for his leadership. He was speedy out there. He was managing the whole outfield situation for everything that he brought to the city in 2016. That's who I ended up going with. Who do you got? Who's your guy?
I think it's interesting that I was going to say there's one other player that you didn't mention there that's got a 3 WAR in center field, and that was 2004 Corey Patterson, who is my center fielder. This is
all right. Okay.
I think this is one of the first Cub prospects that I remember falling in love with that broke my heart. I'm sure there'll be someone else that I'll remember when I'm looking at these stats, but this guy really stood out to me as one that
Felix.
there it is. Way to go for the jugular. I really had high hopes for Corey Patterson, and he was a really good fielder. He amassed a ton of defensive WAR, and I really wanted a center fielder here that could go get it, and that was really the objective here. And he had some pop. He had 24 home runs in 2004, had 32 stolen bases. Another one, he just wasn't a Cub long enough, but I almost got him for the defense and the speed. I almost went with Juan Pierre in 2006. I loved.
Wow. Okay.
So that 2003 Marlins team, as much as they destroyed my heart, I loved this idea of the Juan Pierre, Luis Castillo top of the lineup, where those guys were just pesky and fast. Both of them stole like 70 bases. It was like they were so fast. And when the Cubs got Juan Pierre, I was like, all right, here we go. We've got the speedy leadoff hitter. Yep. And like he hit like basically his weight. He had 292, 330 on base, and stole 58 bags for the Cubs. So I almost went with Juan Pierre, but 2004 Corey Patterson. So right field, I guess I can tell you my individual season, but we're both going with Sammy. Like there's just it's the easiest question in the world. If you have someone else besides Sammy Sosa, let us know in the comments and tell us where you get your crazy pills from, because this guy put the Cubs, I think, on the national map in this period, in this time frame, 1998, starting then, and they were on, ESPN, and when that wasn't a regular thing, and they were on Fox Saturday Baseball because people liked watching this guy hit home runs. And say what you want about steroids, everybody was doing them. Not that makes it okay. Just because everyone's doing something doesn't mean you should do it. But I mean, my basement has a Sammy Sosa shrine. You're about to show us, Sammy Sosa.
So this was a scorecard, and then that's Sammy signing it for me on that date in '98. Beforehand, I was out like an idiot on Waveland and Kenmore. Sorry about that. At Waveland and Kenmore, getting home run batting practice balls. I was with my brother-in-law. He literally had his sunglasses that were on his face, mind you. This is how crazy it was. Break in 4 pieces while they were on his face, trying to get a ball because of the madness. I mean, Sammy, it was all Sammy. It was a Sammy Maguire show. Yes, it's a shame to see what came about of all that. But, I mean, he really brought it back to the city. And to see the Ricketts finally reaching out to him, and now he's back with the organization, going to Cubs conventions. He went to spring training, etc. But everything that he did during that season, I mean, he electrified it, and it was crazy. And if y'all want to see some funny stuff, I play this commercial for people time and time again. Go to YouTube and look up Sammy Sosa Armour hot dogs.
Oh, I know what you're doing.
This commercial, yeah, it is a riot. But yeah, I mean, Sammy, you can't think of anybody else even in that category. Now, Tucker starts heating up. We end up going deep in the playoffs. Maybe even, dare I say, World Series. Okay, you can start thinking about that a little bit. But his stats were just so good. He just invigorated the city like nobody else could. Yeah, and I mean, it's probably all the same reasons that you picked Sammy.
Yeah, and the only thing I have to add really is that I picked the 2001 version of Sammy Sosa, which was an absurd year, and he did not win the MVP. He hit 64 home runs, 160 RBIs. Just like he had a 437 on base and a 737 slugging. That's a 1.1. No one is doing that anymore. No one. And this was just like, one of many guys on the All-Star team was doing that. It really just puts into perspective, first of all, what steroids did, and second of all, just how different, and maybe as people have leaned away from the game, and this is a different conversation, but like that is the offensive precedent that a good generation of people have set as what normal offense looked like at baseball was these guys getting on at a 400 clip. There's like one guy that does that now, maybe 3. It's just
if you're lucky. Right.
So one thing that's super interesting to me, like just looking at WAR, and there's other things to evaluate, but the top 3 seasons in regards to WAR by right fielder in the last 25 years for the Cubs are Sammy Sosa. Can you guess who the 4th would be on that list?
It's not safe.
It is. It is Seiya Suzuki, which is so interesting to me because I feel like he gets. It's interesting sometimes watching his at bats, and there's some weird decisions from time to time, but he really has been the best productive right fielder the Cubs have had in nearly 25 years. So, like, next time you're talking to your friends about Seiya Suzuki, be like, well, he is the best right fielder in the last 25 years besides Sammy Sosa. That is true if you're evaluating by WAR. It was 2024 season. He had...
I've been with that one. Thanks,
there you go. All right, so we didn't do catcher because I was going to slide into pitching. Okay. So who is your catcher your favorite catcher from the last 25 years?
I'm going to say it in only a way that Pat Hughes can say it. Wilson Contreras.
There you go.
Was who I picked. I mean, his 20.5 WAR in 7 years is way better than any catcher in the stretch. Made 3 All-Star teams as a Cub, hit 117 homers, had a .807 OPS, and he started a career. Actually, he started his Cubs career about 20 minutes from this house over at the Kane County Cougars when it was Schwarber, Contreras, and Almora who played for Kane County. And ever since that point, he was on fire. I can't honestly think of a better catcher during that stretch. Now, going by what you were saying about picking individual seasons, who knows what the 2025 Carson Kelly's going to end up looking like.
Fair.
You never know. But I went with Contreras. What about you?
Yeah, I think, for me, this was a tough one. This is, I respect defensive catchers so very much. That's one of my favorite things. It's the position I enjoyed playing the most. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I was a very good catcher, but I did look at some framing, some defensive war for the position. There's a lot of innings limits and stuff that make it really challenging to like really look at, because some guys like didn't play enough to be qualified for the end of the year. Others did play well enough to be qualified, and I have a hard time not taking 2016 David Ross because of the leadership, and it's a terrible pick if you're talking about offense. I like don't get me wrong. But similar to why you would pick Rizzo at first, David Ross is the glue for me here. He's going to manage my pitching staff. He's going to be the red-ass guy that's going to manage the potential egos I'm about to throw out there in the starting rotation. And he's going to really gel this group together, because we're not picking a manager for this group, which I would pick Joe Madden. But if we didn't have a manager, I would take David Ross. I would trust him to put together this team and make sure that they were accountable, and even make Sammy Sosa, hustle from time to time, no matter how much he tried not to. So I'm going to take 2016 David Ross, the Swan Song. He was really good at back picks. He won a game in Washington in 2016, throwing a runner out at first base. Loved watching him call a game. He really just was in on every pitch. Yeah, he had some tough moments in Game 7 that gave me heartburn, but it wasn't necessarily like putting John Lester in the middle, not a non-clean inning. Oh, we're not going to audit Joe Madden's performance tonight, but David Ross would be my catcher. So
good pick.
Let's go to the starting rotation. And did you pick 5 starters, or did you... Okay, so let's do 5 starters. I'm cool with that too. I just was making sure. All right, so 5 starters for the rotation. Who do you got as your ace?
Well, in looking at all of the 5 that I've gotten, I would have to, and again, maybe piggybacking on your picking individual seasons and whatnot, I would probably do the 2015 or 16 menu, Jake Arrieta. Yep. I would probably put Arrieta. And if you wanted me to go after that, my 5 was Arrieta. And then I had Kerry Wood, then Zambrano, then Hendricks, and then John Lester, which is amazing that there's a 5. But those were the 5 guys that I ended up having. But yeah, I would definitely, just because it was very comforting to see it. But every time Arrieta went on the bump, my God, it was almost like before the first pitch was thrown, you can go to your scorecard and just put W. Yeah. Because he's going to get you that win. I mean, he's throwing the no-hitters and everything that he's doing, I mean, granted, a lot of these other guys that I put on this list are phenomenal. Your guy, and I know your version of Rhino with Kyle Hendricks. I mean, won an ERA title. He beat Clayton Kershaw for the pennant in greatest Game 7 ever. Kerry Wood, Big Z with his bat in addition to him on the bump. But for me, Arrieta, hands down, would be my ace. What about you?
So I'm in the same boat with Arrieta. Like 2015, Jake Arrieta, 236 strikeouts. He pitched, 1.77 ERA. Just 22-6. A tweet to Pittsburgh saying, "Whatever gives you hope." Like, the guy was just everything. He was so good. It was on.
And as a side, seen him today. There was a tweet about a month or so ago of him. I think he was hanging out with his kids or whatever. The guy looks like he could still pitch.
Yeah, like he definitely lost.
It's unreal.
Like he's in great shape. He takes really good care of himself. Yeah. So I looked at WAR here, and I looked at another stat that actually matters a lot to me is strikeouts, and that's one thing that frustrates me about the current version of the Cubs pitching staff is there's just not a lot of strikeout stuff. And to me, after Arrieta, I would go 03 Mark Pryor, 03 Kerry Wood, mainly because those are 2 of my favorite all-time Cubs, and no one's going to ever take Kerry
No.
Wood away from me. He is he's probably my all-time favorite Cub next to Kyle Hendricks. In 03 version of him, 266 strikeouts and 211 innings, just an absolute beast. He had a 3.20 ERA. He wasn't anywhere near as good as 2003 Mark Pryor, 18-6, 2.43 ERA, 246 strikeouts and 211 innings. Man, that tandem, holy cow, just so much fun in that rotation. Yeah, just crazy how fun that was. The back end of my rotation gets interesting because I would be a hypocrite if I did not select Kyle Hendricks, but he's not on the strikeout. But I do want 2016 Kyle Hendricks, the extremely low ERA Kyle Hendricks. That I want him in that rotation.
Good.
And that's 4 for me. In the back end of my rotation, I took 2003 Carlos Zambrano. And he was a hothead, but having him as my 5 with the strikeout stuff, and just if we needed an extra bat and he wasn't able to pitch in whatever scenario we did, I really did like watching Big Z pitch. He was a head case for sure. Like there's no dancing around that. But I would take 2003 as the best version of him. He had 2003 and 2004. He went 29 and 19, putting together back-to-back 4.7 WAR seasons. Just a workhorse. 214, 209 innings respectively on both those seasons. Just a 55% ground ball rate in a fly ball like home run era. Just a really steady guy, not mentally, but so.
Oh God, no! Who's that?
Oh, but that would round out my rotation. And
good.
What about bullpen? Did you do bullpen guys?
The only bullpen guy I did was the closer.
Okay, that's what I did as well.
Yeah, and I kind of had a hard time with this. Kerry Wood actually did a hell of a stint as a closer towards the end of his career.
Yes.
Dempster had a great run at the end of his career, but in my opinion, and I might not be a popular one on this or not, 2016 would not have happened without that Aroldis Chapman trade that we got back in July of that year. I mean, the fact that he came in, and what was hilarious is a season or two before that, him and Rizzo got into a verbal altercation because of it. Because of a game that they were playing or whatever, and then all of a sudden they end up as teammates. But I would go with Chapman. Now, if you want to talk about anybody else, the second person that I did have on this list, and I cannot believe when I read these stats, was Carlos
Yes,
Marmol.
that's my guy.
He led the Cup for 4 seasons. He did his best work in 2007 and 2008. In those 2 seasons, he pitched 156.2 innings and struck out 210 batters and allowed just 81 hits. I mean, that's unheard of, but I had to go, in my opinion, and he had a 5.7 WAR. In my opinion, though, I had to go with Chapman.
Yeah, I think the Chapman thing makes a lot of sense. I went with 2010 Carlos Marmol. This guy, looking at his numbers, it's funny as you look at the game in different ways as you age. This guy, when he would pitch, you could not have told me before I looked at his numbers that he had numbers this good, because he was either walking every guy he saw or striking out every guy he saw. He was just heartburn in an arm. I've never seen such an arm in which this guy would come out, he'd walk the first 3 guys he saw, and then strike out the next 3. Just like, and it'd be like, oh yeah, no, now he's on, and he would just be unhittable. That slider was unbelievable. It was one of the dirtiest pitches I remember a Cubs bullpen guy having. He's a converted catcher. That was one of the things that they always would talk about with him, and he just threw gas and a wipeout slider, and if he knew where that slider was going, that no one in this league could have hit him. If he didn't know where the slider was going, which felt like happened way more often than it should, then the Cubs were in really, really big trouble. And
he reminded me a lot of the late 80s Mitch Williams.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
He reminded me a lot of old Wild Thing. Yeah. Just because of exactly what you just said. He'd go in there and he would be just got off. Then all of a sudden he'd rattle off 3 Ks, game over.
Yeah. Of all the qualified.
Yeah. I couldn't believe
all
it.
the qualified relievers in the last 25 years, qualified, meaning they throw enough innings to be statistically relevant. The five most walks by a reliever in those years, 4 of those seasons belong to Carlos Marmol. So that's like that is how terrifying this man was to watch. It just
Wow.
like that's
Holy
so even
cow.
knowing that.
I believe
I'm still putting Carlos Marmol in the back of my bullpen because of just the absolute dirty strikeout stuff. And if this is all decade team too, I'm gonna play my odds here. I bet there are less patient hitters now and more people that would swing at the slider in this era of baseball than at that point when these guys were all 400 on base guys because of steroids. But yeah, I think those are our all decade teams. What do you guys think of our teams? Would you change things? Make sure you're, taking a look at 2000 and all the way up to this year and let us know in the comments, and make sure you're hitting that hashtag Brickhead as well in the comments, and you will be entered.
You can leave a comment on your team and enter a contest at the same time, Jeff. Who would have thought?
Win. Exactly. That's good for another Bricks Behind the Ivy swing. So I think that does us for today. We got the Cubs, starting this week versus the City of Brotherly Love with the Phillies. No starters announced. So make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. And thank you again to our sponsors, Yagi Road Roasting. If you did not know, it is extremely late where we are recording. So we have our Yagi Road Roasting Brewing and making sure that we're able to give you the best episode we can. And Wrigleyville Sports, thank you so much for co-sponsoring this contest for the free custom jersey. Yes, custom jersey. It's close to a $200 prize. Awesome prize. This is a little bit of a longer episode, but it's a special in all decades. We will see you guys next week, breaking down everything on your Northsiders. Until then, go Cubs.
Go Cubs! Song, everybody!